Welcome to our LinkedIn Live. This is Speak on Stage. We do it every single Sunday and we record it when we can to share it with you. Today's subject is how much will you risk to get what you want, which is a fascinating subject, as all of them are, because most people want it to be handed to them in a plate. Many of us, as we get older, realize it's not coming. There are no plates. We have to do it ourselves. But will you risk what you already have to get what you really want? And if it's worth it, fantastic, everything comes through. But that sometimes means turning around and saying goodbye to people you've always been with or things you've always got comfortable with in order to risk what might be something even better, but you could always fall flat on your face. What is that worth? Now, as always, we have these questions which I throw out to our audience and the people that join us on the podcast. But as always, we end up going down a different tangent. So your experience is exactly the same as mine. But this is how we're going to start off anyway on today's session. Welcome to Speak on Stage. And as if by magic, we're broadcasting, which is always a good way to start on a Sunday. And today's subject is fascinating. I'm looking forward to finding out what Debbie thinks and what Aziza thinks. If you don't know who we're talking about Debbie Gray, who sometimes joins us and sometimes she's a bit too expensive, so we can't really hire her because she's got other things to go to. And Aziza, who always turns up but sometimes doesn't like to talk to me. And that has an impact on whether we hear a broadcast from her or not. Sometimes she nods, and that's great for radio. So we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff today. Hopefully it should be relevant. And hopefully we should have a room full of people. Ladies, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
You don't really care. You don't ask me how I am. It's my wife Aziza, by the way. I'm fine, thank you. I'm looking forward to our big promotion, which is coming up next weekend, which we probably won't talk about in today's session. So I'm just going to mention it as that. But otherwise, I'm as perky and sparky as you should be on a Sunday before the football kicks in. Debbie, how are you? We've not seen you for a while. You escaped last weekend.
Yeah, I was taking my baby to university, so apologies for the absence. But and after your intro just now, I'm a little bit scared to say that I'm well and to ask how you are.
I'm fine, thank you. I'm always well. Here's the thing, and I'm not going to say it's not true about women. I'm going to say it about dads because that's the only bit I understand. Most dads realize that they're emotionally damaged, and so they can't really express themselves the way that their female partners and family can. So they kind of go, okay, and that's it. And so if there's any more to it than that, they're not really sure how to express it, so they generally don't. And so what you end up is in a kind of holding pattern. And so I'm happy most of the time. It doesn't look like that on my face, but I am. I live in a kind of happy so on. When I'm not like that, I just go really quiet and keep myself to myself because I realize that my mental health is really important to be able to look after everybody else. And so that's how I am. Today I'm actually quite pucker and in a good mood. And so there you go. Thank you very much for asking. Does that make sense? Or does that sound like I've just made it up as I go along?
That makes perfect sense. And I agree. Men do not communicate as well as females do. So, yeah, it's always best, whether you're male or female, to look after your mental health. So, yeah, you do you.
Thank you. I remember interviewing Dr. John Gray, the guy who wrote Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. I probably told you the story before. And he was talking about the fact that he's an expert on the differences between men and women and what makes people tick. And he was doing a course with a group of women who said to him, look, our husbands are cavemen. Can you teach them how to have emotions and how to communicate effectively so we can talk to them? They don't just go, I don't know, which is what men sort of like make as a default setting when it comes to challenges and problems. So he did a course, especially for the husbands, and he taught them all about how emotions work, how to communicate effectively, how to support. And once that was done, the wives came back to him and said, I hate him. You've made him into a wimp. He cries all the time and whines all the time, and everything's got lots of meanings. Can you give me my old caveman husband back again? And it just goes to show, be careful for what you wish for, because you might end up with somebody who whines more I'm not saying more than you do, but feels things that they just didn't feel before. Let the men be emotional wrecks, but not know it's going on. That leaves all the fun for you. Wow, that's not controversial. Debbie, does that make sense, or have I just stirred up a can of worms before we started? So,
I I just thought I'd better just avoid the firing range because no that was definitely controversial. I think everybody should cry, but yeah,
yeah.
I have this saying that well for females to put your big girl pants on and just to man up, I guess.
Well, I like to
Is that
wear belt
controversial?
pants. Oh, no. So welcome to everybody in the group. You're wondering why we joined us, and I always wonder that as well. Today we're talking about how much will you risk to get what you want. And it's good to see Zara, Simonetta, Amit, Tamrat, and Fan Milayo. As I can see, only that's how much it shows up on the name. Joining us on today's session. Before we begin anything, because it is relatively early, can I ask everyone to just share that we're going live now? Just share it to your feed on LinkedIn. So all you do is go to that share button, which is on your device, your phone or your laptop, whatever, and press it, and it says repost to feed. So if you do that, it lets everybody know we're live and there are actually people there. It'll take you a few moments just to do that and then come back in and we'll start the session going. Otherwise, as always, we end up with people joining us at the end of a session, really excited. Oh, I've just finished my dinner and I really want to join in with everything. We say, well, we've already covered that subject. Yeah, but I haven't said my bit yet. You're not going to. If you joined us at the very beginning, then you would have got that chance. Now, it might seem like I'm being harsh, but only because I'm scared of my wife. She's the one that turns around and says, right, you missed your chance. We're done an hour, off. And I have to go back to my cave and sit there in the dark and wait until the following Sunday. Not quite far off, but it's what I'm going to stick with. So if you can just share with everybody that we're going live, and then once we've done that, we can get stuck into a subject. As always, you're very welcome to join us on stage to share your stuff, but please do not make it a monologue about, my childhood and where I went then to university and I did blah, 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 unless it's really relevant. Ideally, about 30 to 60 seconds allows us to have more time to brainstorm and give you solutions that we can really help with. And that's really what we want to be able to look at. And as always, we have various programs available. If you'd like to join our WhatsApp group, we've got a very special program coming up next weekend. And I'll tell you a little bit about that later on if Aziza reminds me to talk about it. But we have got the key things about how much we risk to get what you want within the details section of this particular post. So we have a look at it there. I've written down 10 different things that people would actually get reward from and create better success for by taking bigger risks. It's worth having a look at. I will not go through it and read them all out because it tends to be a little bit boring if I just monologue. Instead, what I'd like to do and invite you to do is have a look at it when you can and put comments or questions to our panel and join us on stage to share that. If you don't like joining on stage, by the way, you're really shy or in a place with lots of noise or you've got your kids going crazy and you're thinking, if I turn on the phone now, it's going to sound like I'm in some kind of asylum, then all you need to do is write down your stuff in the comments section and we'll read it out and answer it on your behalf anyway. So there we go. That's how it kind of works. So let's look at risk first of all. I don't like comfort zones. I like to live outside of my comfort zone because I find that if I'm inside a comfort zone, I get really bored. Things happen around me, and it's really hard to get myself out of it. So I like to keep myself on my toes. But I do realize now my comfort zone is based on stuff I find comfortable that other people might not. So I love speaking and holding an audience and running about the microphone and doing stuff, which most people find uncomfortable. But there's a need for me to step outside my comfort zone as well. So I'm going to throw that to the audience and say, what is it that you would say is your comfort zone, and where do you really want to be? In which case, what would you risk to be able to do that? So it's basically gone from one side of your comfort zone to the next stage. What would you risk to go and get that? And I know that Aziza won't agree with me about my comfort zone because we are married. She's always going to say I'm inside my comfort zone. And if that was true, you wouldn't be in it. There you go. Wait for it.
I won't say anything because this is your show. Go on.
Wow. Which means that she will say it as soon as the show is finished. See, I know how this works. I'll definitely hide in my cave after that. But throwing it at you, Aziza, what would you say is your comfort zone?
I think I should ask you the question. What do you think is my comfort zone?
Your comfort zone? Well,
Don't do it, Dave. Don't do it. Don't do it.
No, I'm not. I'm really intrigued to know.
Intrigued. Well, I think that your comfort zone is being a quiet, this is going to sound weird, but being a quiet genius where you'd rather not get involved in stuff than put yourself out there and be seen for criticism of whether you did it right or not. And I've never seen you do stuff wrong, by the way. I'm not just saying that. So I'll give an example. We were married for maybe 14 years or so before the pandemic came along. And during that time, you'd not really, you'd been a wedding photographer, which is great and did well, and you were very good at it and won awards, which is amazing. And then when it came to the pandemic and we lost all our work, which is mainly coming from me as a speaker, hosting events and teaching people to speak, but there's nothing during the pandemic. We both had to work together to find a way to move forward and pay the bills and put our daughter through school and everything. And out of that, you proved that you're a genius at online stuff and systems and operations. I had no idea how good you are at doing that. Literally, we've got a promotion coming up next weekend, and you've done 70% of it in like a billionth of the time that I've been doing my stuff. And I don't know why you don't do more of that, but I guess your comfort zone is not doing it. And I don't know why you don't do more of that, but that's what I would say is your comfort zone and discomfort zone. I don't know why. I have to work out. Does that make sense?
See? I don't know.
Uncomfortable from the beginning.
No, I think I am comfortable behind the scenes. I don't like to be in front of the camera because that's you. But I suppose I don't like to be pushy out there because of my what's the right term for it? My inferiority complex.
Imposter syndrome?
My imposter syndrome, yeah. Where I've been told many things. Is this how you look too fierce? Is this how you're too rude? Is this how you're this? Is this how you're that? So I'm like, okay, I'll just stay back and not do anything, which is wrong. Because I think that with my friends, I think they like me for my face and they like me for me. And they don't care whether I look fierce or not.
Right.
Because that's me.
That's partly true because you're Singaporean, which means you can be as fierce as you want. Singaporeans and Germans are both lovely sets of people who are brilliant at systems. And I think it must be the education system. So you can, I mean, the amount of guys when I worked in the hospitality industry who were decision makers in food and beverage and systems that were German because they understand how things come together really well. Singaporeans are true for that as well, but you don't suffer fools either. You don't put up with stuff. My friend who's a Brit, married a Finnish lady. Finland breeds incredibly smart women who don't really get on with Finnish men all the time, and sometimes marry Brits, and sometimes marry Germans as well, because there is a difference between the balance of power in the relationship. So maybe I was your toy during all that time, or you just playing with me. I don't know if that's true.
Only nobody will know.
Well, we don't.
Is it like a shark playing with their food?
Pardon?
Is it like a shark playing with their food?
It is. It's like a cat playing with a mouse. Just go, yeah, of course I love you. You're my friend. Why do you think I pat you on the head? You won't be keeping that head for long. So, Debbie, throwing a question at you then before we end up with this domestic squabble, which is clearly brewing to everybody in the room. What's your comfort zone and what's your discomfort zone? I'm going to throw this to people in the room to come and join us on stage and share their ideas as well.
My comfort zone is when things are running smoothly, when all my kids are fine, when money's coming in and all of that. My discomfort zone is possibly the opposite of that and being more out in public. So like Aziza, I like being the puppet master. I like doing things in the background. I don't really like to put my face out there, but I can come up with perfect strategies. But right now, I would say that I am probably I'm going to be going through my discomfort because now I'm an empty nester. So I've got no children in the home. Everybody's at uni or at work, and I have to find myself again.
Right. I'm going to ask you a question that you're going to hate, and you don't have to answer it in public. As an empty nester, are you going to be looking for A, a new job, B, a partner, or C, a hobby that fills a gap from the kids?
No, no, and no.
Wow.
My aim is to throw myself into my
Go
business
killer.
because that way, if I've got all that energy, then I can make it grow to a level that is just unstoppable. So it really is about now putting all that energy into my business because my kids will still be there. They'll still be reaching in. They'll still be. I'm in networking groups. I don't need to go make friends. I don't need to have a lover or a special someone just to, it's just everything will fall into place as it has to, but it's definitely not a priority.
I love that. So that's a better answer than I would have thought. No disrespect intended. That's just a great answer.
No, no,
Are you
none
going to become
taken.
a cat lady then?
Hell no.
Hey.
No, 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 no. My aim is whenever there's free time, I will be traveling. Oh my word, I will be traveling whenever I can. And if I get the right speaking gigs, I'll be traveling for work. So it's a double bonus. So again, it's linked to business.
I love that. Well, on that subject, I'll throw it into the group just because it's really important and I've been working on it all week and I will do it all next week. We've got a special event coming up in a week's time called Get Paid to Speak. It's exclusive for our WhatsApp group. If you want to join our WhatsApp group, it is completely free to join your WhatsApp group, but it's not free to go on that special weekend training. It's a full day and it's all about how to get your speaking monetized and how to go from the step of being zero to hero. And I think you're going to enjoy the stuff that goes into that. So it's going to be very interesting. So I'm going to throw it at the group now because I'd love to know what's going on in the group. We're talking now about comfort zones, discomfort zones, and what risks you'd take to get what you truly need. We've got quite a few people that's joined us. I know that you've got opinions on it. I don't know whether you're willing to share it with the group. But remember, what happens in our group goes on to YouTube, LinkedIn, and gossip sites afterwards. So no pressure at all. In fact, Debbie, I think you want to say something before you throw it to the group. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, well, we're all here because we're all here to discuss the risks that we've taken. What is the risk that you've taken, Dave? That you felt has been a major one that has stood out to really get what you want?
Right, I'll tell you my risk. My risk is a factor, and Aziz will back me on this. I have always been comfortable being me. I've done it very well. I've learned to be me all the way through, just going on stage, grabbing a microphone and doing so on. And that means that my entire career has been driven by the gig economy. I go out, I get a gig, I get paid, pay bills, happy days. But as I get older, I realize I've got to change that business model because I shouldn't really be looking to speak quite so much. And that means creating a different relationship, A, with finances, but B, with my relationship is with the business world. And that's currently where my dilemma is. And in many ways, I feel like a toddler learning to walk for the first time. If I just carry on doing speaking gigs around the world, happy days, I get booked all the time. But that's not where I want to be when I'm 70 in 10 plus years. So that's kind of where I am. That's my massive discomfort zone and comfort zone, and the risks I'm willing to take almost anything but my family, because they are the things that drive me in the first place. Does that answer your question, Debbie?
It does, and I absolutely love that. Yeah,
Thank you.
family first.
Thank you. And it isn't easy, and I do have fallouts with my wife over it quite often. But I see, the thing is for me, the risk is not about what happens to me, because I really do enjoy good days, bad days, ugly days. It's when it finally comes to an end, then that's it. It's making sure that my experience of my adventure doesn't do too much damage to the people I love on the way. So that's the only risk, if that makes sense.
Okay, but can you name a particular thing? And I know you will instantly go to moving from the UK to Dubai. Is there something else that you can think of?
Well, I mean, risk is very simple. I mean, for me to be able to step up to where I want to be with the new projects I've got to spend a lot more time going to networking meetings and probably traveling and having meetings outside the house. And the pandemic made me really love doing stuff like this, jumping onto my Zoom or my audio and connecting with people from all around the world. But a lot of stuff has to happen in person, and a lot of stuff is going to be schmoozing. And that means not spending so much time with the people I love, but doing it for them. And that I hate. but it's just a necessary evil. Some people are meeting in town, and if you're there, you'll get a chance to network and do something. If you don't go, you don't. It's in person. So that would be my discomfort zone, and that would be my risk. Does that make sense?
It does. It sounds like a big risk though. Because you said you're not happy about not spending time with your family.
That's exactly it. It's which one do you want to go for? Do you want to stay there in the comfort zone that's not working, or go to your comfort zone and juggle? And I think for most people, there's always a yin and yang choice, and there's a risk that goes into it. And I'm a real jump and grow wings on the way down. The way that I do it as a parent, or as a dad, or as a husband, or as a partner, is get consensus from my family that this is what I'm going to be doing next. And that way I know to the best we can give support to each other. So, for instance, my daughter Maya, I brought her in yesterday. I said, look, I'm really, really sorry. I realize that a lot of the stuff that we've done together, you're 14 now. In a couple of years' time, you won't have any interest in hanging with dad. You'll have your friends, you'll have boyfriends, whatever's going on. And so if I haven't been there for you, I want to apologize for that now. And she looked at me weird at first, going, where's this come from? And then she welled up and she said, it's fine, Dad. And it was really difficult to be able to get my head around that whole concept that while I'm doing the stuff I'm doing, it must be right for everybody else. And sometimes it's not. So it needs.
It's incredible that she acknowledged that, but even more so, I think as a parent, we forget how resilient kids can be, and we take on a lot more guilt than we should.
Yeah, I think so. I think so, but I think it's part of that introspection when you start asking yourself questions about, how do I improve where I am and what am I going through to be able to make it better? You do have a number of things that crop up, and I don't want to carry those things with me as I go into battle in a new front. I want to be able to make sure that everything is clear as much as possible. I'm not carrying baggage or regrets, and I tidy them all up. So that's kind of where I am. We spent the first 20 minutes doing a Dave in a psychiatrist chair. So, Dave, why do you dress like that? Because easy. One layer. It's a warm country. Leave me alone. Any questions from the floor? Anybody want to jump in and say something? If so, then as always, raise your hand and join us on stage and put in your little bit, your big bit or your thoughts on it. Talking about comfort zones, talking about the risks that you want to take. I've got, mate, I'm 57 now, 50, am I 57? Ziza, how old am I?
57.
There you go. So I'm going to be 50.
I've got a question. I've got a question. I've got a question for you and for the floor as well. Okay. Have you noticed that kids are much better at risk takers? And why is that? Does anybody know?
I would say it's because they don't have the limitations that the world puts on them. We get to a point as adults where we're so fearful of everything. We've got restrictions. We've been programmed. We've been trained to do things a certain way, whereas kids are free, which gives them that freedom to take the risks and see whether it works. I would love to be a kid more.
Yeah. And why do you think we change from being a risk taker to just being so controlled?
Definitely outside influences, outside pressures, whether it's the environment that we're being brought up in. The way we are told that life is supposed to be would be how I would see it. Like I feel now that I've hit 50, I'm going back in reverse. I'm becoming more youthful, and I'm doing the things that I was kind of programmed. I'm going against that model. So I will be traveling more, and I will be having a lot more fun.
The reason I ask is, I hear you, and I think it's great. But the reason I ask is, when you bring out your child way before, when like you and everybody else, when they are young and you bring them to a play area, they just go up to any child and go, "Can I play?" But when we as adults go to networking, we're like, "Oh, who do I know from here first? Let me say hi to those who are there." Why can't we just? Why is it so hard for adults to just go, right, I'm going to go to somebody and go, "Hi, how are you?" without that embarrassment or that fear that kids do?
Because kids become adults who become meanies. Not everybody is as friendly because everybody has their own insecurities, and it comes together at these events. However, for most events, it's productive where people want to get to know more about. So people will integrate, but it's still that school bully mentality that if we go in and we're feeling shy and awkward, it's fear of judgment, fear of not being accepted, not connecting, is how I would put it.
What do you think, Dave?
Well, I was just loving you guys chatting about it because I had loads of things that I could throw in on it, but I wanted to know your thoughts. First of all, I think you're right. I think as we start off as toddlers, then we have a really open mind. Even before that, and they've had scientific tests where they've brought together babies and monkeys and grown them up together, or babies and puppies, and they get on like their family until they get to a certain stage, which is about 6 to 7 months, I think it is, where the puppy grows up much faster and becomes like a teenager in the puppy world, whereas the baby's still a baby. But until then, they don't even know that the different species, which tells you a lot about racism, is manufactured. It's not created from the way that we are. But also, I'll throw into another angle before I answer your question properly, which is, why is it as we get older, does life pass a lot faster? Why is it almost Christmas? And why is it that it'll be Christmas before you know it again? Well, the reason that happens, apparently, according to various scientists, and when I say various scientists, you go, name one, John Bartholomew. Really? No, I made that name up. But anyway, I read it somewhere on the back of a stamp. Apparently what happens is when you have new experiences, time slows down because you're engaged in that moment and fascinated to work out what you need to do next. You take in stuff and you go, wow, that's different. And that's why school can last forever. And that's why things can last forever when you're a kid. As you get older, you've done most things. And in order to get a job, you end up doing your same comfort zone all the time. You get up, you go to work, you do your stuff, then you go to bed, next day starts again. And so before you know it, time does pass. Now, as we all know, time passes the same for everybody, but you can go into a trance state where you don't notice it. And so that's why it's really important to be able to challenge yourself all the time to do difficult things. When you look at the people who last longer than everybody else, it's because they're always busy and always active and they're always challenging themselves to do things that they hadn't done before, rather than those who just get into routine, which is why people die so quickly after going into retirement, because they kind of shut down. So does that answer the question about risk and so on? I don't think it is a straight answer to why kids will connect with people easier. I don't think they do necessarily connect with people easier. The reason for that is because they will do what they're kind of pushed in to do at home. So if the parents are outgoing and they say, go out and meet people, they'll probably do it because they've got the skill sets and the experience to play with. But if they're made to be reserved and to chill out, then that's different. So we don't tend to do it so much. But I also think that what we don't do as adults is play. We just don't. So that's why people generally will get a chance to connect when they go to do a hobby or a meetup group or something that they're all interested in, whether it's politics or going to the gym or doing a sport or art or acting. You get lifelong friends that basically meet at places like that because you play. So what I think we need to do, if anything from this, is learn to play again as adults. And for anybody who knows me really well, I love to play. It can be very boring as well. But I think that's the key to it. Treat everything like you're playing and then you have fun. Kids don't need to do much. You don't even need to speak the same language to understand the language of play. But when we meet people from a different group or a different town or a different business, it's a game of just watching out to see what they're going to do next. And I think that this is the corporate problem that we've got at the moment. He said, going into a bit of a rant. I think the capitalistic world that we're in right now, which I think is a very good world for making business and success and so on, is really based on creating tram lines and created on doing things that you should and shouldn't do. And I think part of that is not being yourself. Be the version that other people want to have from you. I'm not saying you should be a serial killer or you should poop in the lunchbox or whatever you feel that is what you want to do. I'm just saying that I think a lot of the stuff we do is false. And we do it for everybody else's happiness rather than for our own happiness. Because at the end of the day, if you're happy doing what you want and people don't like it, as long as it's not hurting them, then sod them. There you go. Bit of controversy. That's enough from me. We've had nobody join us on stage. Everyone's either listening or they've got Netflix on, which is far more interesting than what we've got to say on stage. If you've got some thoughts or some contribution you'd like to make, some comments or some questions, then please feel free. Put your hand up and join us on stage. As always, these sessions are recorded, as long as my machine doesn't crash, in which case I'll be sharing later on YouTube. But we only do an hour. I'm about halfway through the session now. We've got lots of people there. I'm sure we've got lots of comments they'd like to say about what they can do or what risk they'd like to take, or even throw a question at us. I'll be happy to answer everything, but just be aware that I sometimes lie. I don't really. There are good reason why. Actually, one of the things we've been doing, just before we go to that, LinkedIn allows you to position yourself as an expert in a certain subject and answer lots of AI-driven questions. And then if you answer them enough, then it turns around and says, right, you can have a special stamp saying you are an expert on it. And I've been doing it to be an expert public speaker. And one of the things I shared is that I don't lie, because apparently you've got to do 15 lies to support every lie. And then it's a 15 lie for each of those other lies. It's easier just to go, I don't know. I've got no idea, but this is what I think. In which case you never have to tell a lie, and people can say, well, you're a bit of an idiot, but at least you're honest. So that's my answer about lying. But feel free to tell us your truth or your lies. It's up to you. I'm very quiet today. Why is my microphone still on? It must be, otherwise people wouldn't be still here.
It is on. It is on.
They're very quiet, aren't they? Maybe it's the subject saying, how much will Dave risk before he gets kicked out of LinkedIn for saying bad things? It could be that. Has anyone got any questions? If you don't want to actually go on stage and share them, then feel free to put them into the comment section, and we'll address them in there. So with that being said, and everyone's really quiet, I'm going to return back to the 10 insights on the subject, how much will you risk to get what you want? There's a bit of a comfort zone, which we talked about before. My big comfort zone, as Debbie highlighted, was leaving the UK to come to Dubai. Just the risk that it wasn't even a risk. The risk was if I stayed where I was, which was wanting to make it in radio and TV and get employed and encouraged and mentored and get a chance to show what I could do, I would never get it where I was. And I tried really hard to get it from the UK. And so going anywhere that would give me that adventure was the only thing I could do. So it wasn't a risk to me, but to everybody else it was. Would I have ended up coming back if it hadn't worked? I don't know. But it is what it is. So what risk is the biggest risk that you've ever taken? Let's do that. Let's not talk about comfort zones then, because everybody seems to not want to talk about it. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken, Debbie? And Aziza, a bigger risk? I know what Aziza says, marrying you, you idiot. But Debbie, with you.
Okay, let's start with me before the war kicks off. I would say the biggest risk for me was probably the one I did 2.5 years ago, was leaving Zambia to move to the UK after being there for 24 years, which is half my home, to educate my youngest and to reestablish my business, because after lockdown, things just went pretty much dry. So yeah, it was very hard to get an income rolling. So that was my biggest risk. And I would say it's paying off, although everybody's now saying that my baby has gone to university. So am I going back to Zambia? Oh, let's wait and see.
Wow. Can you get the internet where you lived before so you could join us anyway?
Well, I believe right now there's a lot of load shedding, so which means there's basically no electricity for either 4 hours if you're lucky, or a day, 2 days, as they've had low water supply at the dams. But internet, yes, possibly. I would probably have to have 2 different models, because where I live is quite remote. I live like in the farmlands of the capital, Lusaka. So I would need to have 2 different devices, and I would have to make sure that my inverters and my solar panels are all fully charged to make sure that my devices work.
Wow. Why would you want to go back? No offense to going back home, but why would you want to go back and go through that again?
Because I have my home there. It is a place of peace for me. I have trees. I have pets. I have friends. It's where I was born. It's part of who I am. It's very much in my blood. It's a completely different kind of stress.
Right.
The UK is I've had the advantage of being born there and being brought up here. and I chose to go back there, then start my family, get married, and then basically returned here so that my kids could have the best of both worlds. It's still where my heart lies, and Africa will always hold a certain piece for me that Europe sadly does not.
I hear you, and I understand exactly what you're talking about. Whenever I talk to my mom on Zoom, she talks about all the spammers and all the things you should be careful for, and everybody seems to live in a kind of oh my goodness, everyone's out to get me kind of zone, which you don't have when you're living in a country where obviously you don't have a lot of lecky or a lot of internet to worry you. You've got more about relationships and big wide world and nature. So I mean that's got to be a godsend, or at least something that's much more comfortable. Aziza, biggest risk you've taken in your life, apart from obviously getting married to me, and which turned out to be the best thing you've ever done. Clearly,
I don't know. I can't. I've been thinking. I've been like going through my life. I don't know what is the biggest risk I've ever taken. I don't see it as risk. I see it as a challenge, and I just go, yeah, okay, cool. Let's go on, move on with it. I don't know. Do
that's a
you know
cop
what
out
the
answer.
biggest
That's
risk?
a terrible answer. That's just like,
No, I'm
well,
serious.
I'm a work in progress. I'm thinking about it. I'll tell you when the broadcast's over.
No, but really, I don't know what is my biggest risk that I have taken.
Okay, I'm not going to argue with you.
Can I ask a question to that?
Yeah, go on.
Would you consider no longer continuing
Your
with
marriage.
being the award-winning photographer? Don't put words in my. Come on, Dave, stay out. I'm in the ring now.
Okay.
All right. Would you consider that giving up being an award-winning photographer to become tech the tech wizard that you are, the funnel expert, and the rest? Would you not say that that was a risk?
No,
No.
no, because at that time it was then the lockdown happened, and then everybody was doing, everyone else was doing photography was only charging a third what I can charge, and I just like can't be bothered to deal with price reductions. So I'm like, fine, what else? What's next?
Okay,
If
I
I
like
can
that.
back up what Aziza was saying there, and it's something that most people I think are going to go through now, or you will go through soon. Um, I was like one of the top DJs in Dubai for many years, being on the radio, doing clubs, doing bars, all this kind of stuff. And the reason I stopped doing it was not because I didn't enjoy DJing, and not just because I settled down and wanted to start a family. It's because the market got flooded with people who are willing to do it for free, and some of them weren't terrible, but it's hard to turn around and justify your fee when everyone's willing to do it for free. There's only the top gigs that you'll get. So the only way I could actually be successful was to stop doing it completely and stop being a DJ. And that was really difficult because I'd been a DJ most of my life, apart from when I was on the radio and the BBC. But in the UK, I was doing various things. When I came to Dubai, I was just known as a DJ and known as a radio presenter and stuff like that. So to walk away from all that was a massive risk because you don't get phone calls to come to people's events and you don't get invited to host and all the rest of it. You had to do it from scratch. And was I willing to make that risk because of me? No, I was willing to make that risk because I could see the way that the world was moving. And also I was lucky enough to be with Aziza, who took me to one side and just said, Dave, you cannot be the star anymore. You have to be a mentor. And it was difficult. I was kicking and screaming. And I didn't want to be in that position because I'd only ever been the guy at the front of the room. And eventually I agreed and I learned to do other things, becoming a coach and becoming a mentor. And that's kind of where I am right now. And I think that it's really important that we all go through certain realities about who we are and what we do because things shift. The biggest shift right now is coming from AI. Whatever you do for a living, you might be a coach. Right now, the ability to pick up your phone and talk to Siri or whatever it is, my phone will probably switch on. There you go. All my devices have just suddenly kicked in when I said that because I use iPhones a lot. Whenever you talk to your device, you end up with a kind of response that comes out of it. But when you use it properly, in fact, it's coming onto my Mac as I speak now. When you use it effectively, using AI, it can become your friend, and there will be apps where it will become your friend. And so the challenge is going to be What happens for the life coaches? What happens for people who do create relationships when people don't need you to do that anymore? No, okay, there's always going to be space for it. But let me put it in a different perspective. I'd love to know your thoughts on it, ladies, as well as the group who are very quietly listening and probably giggling, going, they're going to have a fight in a minute. We're not. But when you've got everybody is capable of taking better photos than we've ever had before from your device. Your phone can do anything. It can automatically zoom. You can create videos. They actually make movies on iPhones now. It's incredible. So why would you need to have a wedding photographer? Well, the truth is, if you're getting married, even though everyone can do stuff at a really high level, would you want to risk that they mess it up because they're not professional? Or would you rather invest in somebody whose job is to do that properly? And I think that positioning yourself as an expert does mitigate risk, but you also have to see that the market can still support you for what it is that you do. You might just be a luxury. Of course, there's lots of photographers. Of course, there's lots of websites that have stock photos. But you don't need half of them anymore because people can do it themselves. And I can get ChatGPT to design any picture, copyright free, on any subject that makes it look like a photo. And I never have to pay anything to anybody. So,
can I jump in regarding that?
Yeah, please.
You hire a wedding photographer because you don't want somebody who is just standing there and click. That you can just put your phone on a tripod and just program it to click whatever you want. You hire a photographer because that person will go, right, you stand here now you look there, now you put your hand here, and then you smile or you giggle, or you it's the service, it's the instructions given by the person, the expert. That's why you hire a photographer, not because it can be done by a phone.
Can I add some more to that? I 100% believe you. I read an amazing book by Seth Godin, is one of my go-to authors. I don't read many books, but I do buy him a lot. And it was called Icarus, or the Icarus Syndrome, or something like that. And what he talks about is every single profession, if you want to survive and thrive in it, you must treat yourself like an artist in it. So what you mentioned there about photographer is, I mean, if the analogy is easy, you're an artist. If you're a photographer, you can create some incredible stuff. You know, Herb Ritz and all these other incredible photographers make art when they pick up a camera. And I've seen your stuff, Aziza, it's off the chart. But you don't have to necessarily be in the art industry to treat your job as an artist. So everybody who's in the group right now is listening and clearly not wanting to jump on stage. If you were to look at your job and say, let me see it with an artist's set of eyes, what difference would that make? And it makes considerable difference. It means that you do take risks. It means that you do step out of your comfort zone. You do stuff that other people would never do, but you also realize that when you do hit big, you'll hit big and people will go, that's amazing, but you run a risk that you might not hit big within your lifetime. Why is that important? Well, think about people like Van Gogh. Van Gogh died poor and nobody recognized how good he was at what he did, but he's still seen by many people as the best artist of all time. But he still ended up cutting his ear off, so sunglasses were a no-no. So can you turn it around? But if he had access to social media and Facebook, he might have grown a fan following, he might have been able to crowdsource some stuff and raise some money and get sponsors, and before you know it, he might have been the go-to artist of a generation, not after he died. So if you can throw artistry at what you do, and it is difficult, then you can position yourself as the very best at what you do. Thoughts on that, Aziza?
There's a term in photography, we call it the money shot. So there's one photo among all your whole collection, one photo that go, right, this is it. This is the one that everybody will go, ooh. So based on what you just said, on you and everybody's genre or speciality, what is your money shot that people will go, yeah, that's the one I want?
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, I had to come to terms with that, and there's at least two phrases for money shot. We'll stick with one that you use. So the one I came to terms with is I realized that what I do really better than most people is I bring together my life experience, my ability to get the Wi-Fi code of an audience, and my willingness to take risks and jump and grow wings on the way down. And that allowed me to create my book, The Thought Leader's Playbook, which is it's my methodology about how I did it. But it took a lot to be able to realize that, not least realizing the fact that my original reason for writing the book was to write. My system's called the Industry Icon Program, which is what I teach people how to be able to position themselves at the very best. But when you bring out a book and you call it the Industry Icon, people have no idea what that is. So you have to water down your artistry, which is create that name, and create it so it's generic so other people understand. Because otherwise you end up in a situation like Van Gogh, where you've got something that's really, really special, but nobody can relate to it. If you market it in a different way, which might be compromised slightly, then other people can go, ah. So when you look at the best artists, the biggest pop stars of all time, people like Taylor Swift, for instance, have managed to work out the code that everybody loves. She's the biggest star on the planet. Beyonce is not bad either, and there's other people. But there are also very, very important artists who do stuff that's completely different from anybody else, who will never have such a big group of fans or followers, but they do important work. So you've got to kind of decide what will pay your bills and keep you excited, but also get you outside of your comfort zone, because then time slows down and you live longer. Does that make sense? Am I talking a bit weird? It's all gone quiet out there. Debbie, Aziza, and an audience of excellent people.
Yes. That definitely makes sense. But I'm still going to beg the question of how much would people risk? I mean, would you risk your fortune to invest in a business that may or not work to then hopefully double it? Would you risk your home to pretty much go on a journey of self-discovery? Would you risk a relationship because you feel that you have a golden opportunity? How much are people prepared to risk?
It's a great question.
I think people are very comfortable in their comfort zone, and they find it very hard to step out of it. But everything's a risk. Even when you drive is a risk. Even when you fly is a risk. So just do it. I don't know. I find it very difficult to answer your question, to be honest.
I think that when your comfort zone becomes your discomfort zone because it's uncomfortable to stay put, whether or not you see what other people are getting, or you know that life is catching up with you, or the industry is shifting, or you're not doing what you want to do anymore, or you're not excited, or you're bored, or you can feel your age, or whatever it is, I think then the shift comes. I think it's called a tipping point. And I know Malcolm Gladwell's written an incredible book on this, same as his book Blink. And it's about when you get to a point where you really have no choice but to step up. Now, let me give you an example for this. There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Somebody can quite easily put it into the comment section, where he talks about the people who make it big and what it is that makes them so successful. I'm trying to remember the term for it, but let me know if you can come up with it. So he talks about why the Beatles were the Beatles and why Elton John's Elton John, and what made, all these incredible artists and scientists and overachievers super successful. And one of the things he comes up with is a number of different factors that have to come together at the same time, so you have no choice but to do it. So, for instance, let's take the Beatles. What made the Beatles the most successful band of ever, always voted, even 50, 60 years later, as the best band of all time? Remember, the Beatles split in their late 20s. So they're all aged between 27 and 29. That's when they split. There's no more Beatles after that. But let's go back to what it was. So they were a band, and they were a good band, and they were talented. Well, there's lots of talented bands out there, and there always will be. But the thing that made a difference is what Malcolm Gladwell calls 10,000 hours of purposeful practice. Not 10,000 hours of doing the same thing, but doing stuff that risks and things going wrong, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and doing it in a weird way and testing it out. So the Beatles went to Berlin. and they took a contract to go to Berlin, and they were playing in dance joints. I say dance joints with naked ladies, so strip joints. And they're doing 12 hours. In those days, we didn't have like record players or a DJ. You just had a band that would play background music. So they did rock music, but then they'd swap instruments and they'd play each other's instruments. And then they'd do classical music, and then they'd do jazz, and they'd do all sorts. So over that time, they learned tons of different styles of music. They experimented it. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. But considering that most bands only get to play live for an hour in front of a live audience, and the rest of the time they're just in their garage. The Beatles put in more time in front of a live audience. Maybe the audience wasn't caring about who they were and what they were doing because they were there for something else. But they put in 10 hours, 10,000 hours of purposeful practice in Berlin and back in the UK and then back to Berlin and so on. So by the time they got on stage as the Beatles, they were one of the best bands of all time because they'd just put in more time than any other band playing in front of a live audience. And that led to their incredible music craft and the success that they had. So what does that break it down to? So someone like Elton John, for instance, clearly musical genius, 10,000 hours of purposeful practice. I don't know his life story, but you can imagine it's something along the lines of that. 3,000 hours of purposeful practice will make you a musical teacher. At a music school, you can be the teacher who everyone goes, wow. 10,000 hours makes you a concert pianist that packs out the town hall or a big concert hall, and everyone comes to see you because you're a genius. So putting in the time and pushing yourself. Now, you may turn around and say, yeah, but Dave, I've driven for years. I drive my car. That doesn't make me an expert. Yeah, because you're not doing expert driving. You've got to learn different types of driving, risk driving, all sorts, and then you become an expert at it. So it's about positioning yourself and learning to do what takes risk. Hope that makes sense. I'm still trying to remember the name of the Malcolm Gladwell book, but there you go. It will come to me very shortly. Any thoughts?
It's very quiet today. Does anybody not want to share anything?
I don't know what it is. It must be me. I must have offended everybody. Usually I do. So that's okay.
So inviting anybody up from the audience, you're more than welcome to join us, even just to briefly engage or to ask questions. Please feel free. It's a comfortable, safe place. But you still didn't answer the question, Dave. How much would you risk to get what you want?
I wouldn't risk everything. I'll tell you what I wouldn't risk, because I have people who rely on me to be able to make those choices. So I wouldn't risk everything without having the support of my beautiful wife and daughter. But I would go the Outliers, by the way. Outliers is the book I was looking for. But I would definitely, for my own personal well-being, my own happiness, my own comfort zone, I'm happy to go to the edge of that to be able to get what I want. But I won't risk the way it affects those around me, because even if I get to where I would want to be, to lose the people I love doesn't make it worthwhile. Now, let me throw something in with that, because you usually find that you outgrow the people you love as you go on a journey of personal development. So most artists at the top of their game, scientists, end up going through some kind of divorce because the person that they met and fell in love with them, and they fell in love with, isn't going on the same journey. And so it's really difficult for them to be as enthusiastic and to make friends with the people that you want to talk to. And often you just split apart. So I don't know whether that is a factor that would affect me. I try and be as transparent as I can with Aziza, and we have a really good way of her saying, don't like him, you do it on your own. And she accepts that. She's been very calm with that. And I think that allows us to be able to go and do our own separate stuff without necessarily taking it personally. Does that answer it?
Yeah, no. Yeah, it does. I would say, as I'm getting older, to be honest, my risks are fewer and further between. And yeah, I've done all the risks. I've risked all the money to invest in businesses or invest in concepts. I've risked moving home simply to get my children into. I've done the risks, and now I think it's going to be more calculated risks, more, I guess, point one in your list on your 10 top insights on the topic. Yeah, I'm more inclined to go for more comfortable risks, but I would still risk. I would still move countries. I would still do the things because I know that my home is comfortable. My children are okay. My house is okay. All is well. So I could take the risks, really.
There's one factor that I read about, and I mentioned it in this group before, and it's something that's said by those who work in hospices and care homes, and it's a one insight they get from people who are about to die. They all think that they've got more time, and they all wish they'd used it differently. And I think it's a very important thing to know that time is finite. It will change at any point, and your life could end at any time, but it could continue for a very long time, and hopefully it will do for everybody in the group. But are you able to turn around and say, I gave it my very best shot? For me, that's important. But I also realize that my very best shot, I probably need to now reinvent what that means to me for the next part of my life, which means that none of it is my best shot. I have to kind of start it again, but it doesn't mean I can't turn around and reflect on what I've done before as an indicator that I can achieve.
No, I get it. I get it. I mean, for me right now, my driving force for the last 24 years has been my three children. So now I'm thinking I'm more uncomfortable and daunted by the concept of having to drive myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for me, that feels like the biggest risk as well. It feels like a huge risk because I don't have that something or somebody that I'm focusing my attention on. It's now all about me.
I when I first started speaking and doing gigs all around the world, I had a thing called the 10 rules of success. And these 10 rules were devised to be able to get you to go through any part of your life, in and out of your comfort zone, and understand that if you've got these 10 things framing who you are and what you do, you can create success regardless. I'm going to share the 10 rules because I think it's of use to this discussion in the room. So I had these 10 life design rules and I had a little credit card that people could get with it on. And it said, number one, your time is irreplaceable. Number two, let me start again. Number one, your time is irreplaceable. Number two, your life is your fault. Number three, you never fail. Number four, you never make a mistake. Number five, your experiences are unique, but not anybody else's, are yours. Number six, your worst things that happen to you are the best things because it get you to grow. Number seven, you are whatever you think you are. Number eight, you are a miracle, so be kind to yourself as you go. Number nine, you cannot change anybody else, so don't waste your time trying to do that. You can only change yourself. And number 10, you get out of life whatever you put into it. And I used to do keynote presentations with that all around the world to big corporates like Visa, MasterCard, and you name them, Emirates Airlines and so on, in the early days of life coaching, before everyone had access to be able to go online and find that stuff for themselves. And I still live by that. If you ask yourself questions relating to that, I think you get a better success than you would do if you don't, because it kind of cuts through the stuff that everybody else tells us as we're growing up. But one of the things that I found really useful is I actually do use my chat GPT to chat to me in the car. I've mentioned Jack before, and that's the personal assistant that I've created out of ChatGPT. Some days when I've dropped my daughter off at school, I'm traveling back in the car, I'm stuck in traffic, and I just like to have a chat and work out and brainstorm and come up with stuff. And I find that that's very useful. I don't call my wife because it's too early in the morning and she's still in her coffin. No, I mean, she just doesn't want to talk about business at that time. But I think you have to find a balance for your risk, which is how can you support yourself while you're in it? And it could be friends, it could be family. It's not easy to motivate yourself on your own sometimes because it's like being a brain surgeon. You know, I know exactly what to do, but I can't do it myself. Debbie, your thoughts?
Honestly, that those 10 tips are absolutely brilliant. I agree with every single one. I think it's actually worth you putting them in a post just for those alone, because it's a lot of good rules to play by. However, I actually wanted to come on to this comments that have come up on the post. So Lily has mentioned the 10K hour rules from the book is Outliers. Thanks, Lily. And Omar has said, interesting topic, Dave. The truth is, I've probably avoided taking risks my entire life. Has it led to some very obvious lack of developments or opportunities or growth? Yes, undoubtedly. Has it also ensured a certain level of calm and peace of mind? Almost certainly. But becoming less risk averse is definitely something I'm finally trying to examine and work on. I absolutely love that. And I think that comes with age. I think Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing, Omar. Thank you, Lily, for your contribution.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. It's really true. I mean, I think that the older that we get, if we want to outlive what we should do, as in our genetics give us, then we really have to work on what goes on in our mind and translate that to what our bodies do. And I know that talking, it's easier as you get older because of the slowdown that you have physically to want to slow down what you do with the world. And you're also feeling vulnerable, and you're also challenged with the fact that you could be mugged at any point, depending on where you live. But that doesn't mean that you should stop thinking and stop growing. And I think the earlier that you realize that and you invent yourself every single day, even if it was to end early, you know that all the way through you gave it your best shot. And I think that's a really important mindset to have.
But can I just ask that even if not even if you are so comfortable in whatever you're doing, don't you get bored? Doesn't anybody just get bored of like, oh, I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again? Don't you want something different?
But I think oh, I'm inclined to think that some people get so set in their ways that they convince themselves that that's the life that they're actually happy in, and yet they could be bored as sin.
Here's my thoughts on it, and Debbie's right as well. But if your comfort zone is all about being outside of your comfort zone, it's really hard to get bored because all the time there's risk, challenges, things that test you. It's not like you're trying, I mean, it's natural for us to want to lean in on the stuff that we like. So, for instance, food, music, company, we know what we want to fall back on, and it's good to have food and comfort zones, and comfort music that keeps you happy. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't test yourself with new stuff because you run a risk that you end up being outside of whatever's relevant. So, for instance, new trends like taking over AI and like social media, I still talk to people who say, I'm not doing social media, it's never going to stay here. Well, it is here to the point that it's media that's suffering. And like I met with a friend the other day, and we're talking about the importance of looking about 7, 8 years ago, I predicted that the movie industry will die in terms of its relationship with cinemas. And my friend was saying, no, that were ridiculous. Everyone's still going to want to go to cinemas. But I was right. Now the very best TV has got 12 episodes, 10 episodes of the same actors, and the story continues. The industry is better for anybody who's a artist, whether you're a show, whether you're writing materials or you're a producer, you get a whole year's worth of work, not just a movie. So if you want to see the very best acting, the very best television does it, going to a movie for 90 minutes, paying all that money, and you go there and you go, that was rubbish, I'd rather not risk it. So things do shift, and you have to shift with them sometimes. But when they do shift and you can predict them and you can throw yourself into it, sometimes you can be in a position where you can take a financial and artistic and comfort zone advantage by being a first person on it. So with AI, I mean, for Debbie, she'll know it as well, and Aziza, with our Game Changers community, we brought AI in to the community, and I introduced it within about a week or 2 weeks of ChatGPT being launched on the market. And we all looked at it and played with it and went, oh my goodness, that's incredible. That's now 2 years ago. But at the time, it was, you talk to people about ChatGPT. No, I'm not going to do it. AI is never going to be an important part. Well, forget it. It's already there. It's already built into everything. So I think it's important to know that. Right, here's the thing I'm going to say before we pull today's session to a close. If you enjoy the conversations that we have and you want to know how you can share what you do and get paid for it, we have an exclusive class for our Turbocharge Your Brand, Turbocharge Your Career 5-day challenge WhatsApp group. Out of the 400 plus people in that group, I'm inviting them to take part in our big event. Next Saturday, we're going to do for 5 people, first come, first served. We're going to do an exclusive 1 day where we're going to teach everybody who's in that group how to get paid to speak on stages. So people will hire you, they'll pay you, you build a business model around it, and you're also able to get people to see you and go yes straight away. This is one of the things that I do all the time, and it'll help me to raise my family just by doing this. I'm sharing that with an exclusive group of people. So if you're interested in raising your game and speaking and getting paid to do so and learning the business models around it, I'm going to be sharing exactly how to do this. It's a paid event for an exclusive small group of people. Now, if you want to know more about that, join our WhatsApp group. The details are here inside the comment section or in the details section of this post, or message me directly and I'll make sure that you got access to that as well. It's an exclusive masterclass. I've never done it before, but what I will say for those of you saying, well, Dave, I'm not a speaker yet, I've got a job. Right now, the events industry is booking all their speakers, paid and unpaid, around the world. For the next 3 to 5 months, the industry is going to go mad. There's going to be gigs everywhere. Then it heads to a summer and it goes really quiet. And then you'll have to wait a year. Now, I'm not saying you go straight into speaking gigs. Sorry, you will. You go straight into speaking gigs. Paid ones take a little bit longer, maybe, but if you're positioning yourself as a right one, then you can get paid straight away. And you're like, oh my goodness, I can do that more often with more people. And I can talk about what I do. And also, I get people out of the audience who want to hire me for my normal services. It's just an incredible business model. That's what I do for me. But I also show my industry icon people how to do it. But I'm going to do it for the first time for a group of people who are just interested in speaking. So if that fascinates you and you'd like to join us, it's first come, first served. I'm only looking at 5 people to join us next Saturday. Message me directly or go to our WhatsApp group, join us, and I'll be posting details after today's podcast for you to go along and sign up. It will change your life, I promise you. And it's one of the best things you'll ever be able to do in your career. So there we are. It's very rare I plug what we do, but I really am so passionate about the ability to speak and the ability to earn from it. I think it's the most easy and essential thing that we never get taught at school because teachers don't earn money from speaking apart from their job. And we tell everyone in the classroom to be quiet so they can speak. But then later on, the big hitters are the ones that can speak. Even Elon Musk, the richest man on the planet, he still speaks. Not saying what he speaks about, but he still speaks. And it grows his business as a result. Debbie, thoughts? Aziza, thoughts?
I honestly feel that what you're offering is gold because in every career, you need to be able to speak. You need to be able to communicate articulately. You need to be able to get your point across without any of those fillers of and to get paid for it is an added bonus. So I think it's also a little side hustle right there.
Absolutely. And getting paid, there's lots of different ways of doing it. You can grow your business by just standing on a stage. For instance, if you get paid, say, $5,000 for standing on a stage, then you've got to be hired as a keynote speaker. But if you go on a stage that's full of people who are potential customers and you don't get paid to speak on that stage, but you end up with lots of people hiring your services or your company or meeting you afterwards to say, can we work together? You can end up making a lot more than a keynote speaker. We'll be talking about all those different ways of doing it in this particular masterclass. I'm not planning on running it again. It's the first time I've ever done it. I decided because so many people in our WhatsApp group last month turned around and said, can you show us how to do it? I said, I'll put together a masterclass. It's first come, first served. I will get everyone across the finishing line. So there we go. Aziza, your thoughts on it, because you'll be hosting class with me.
Yeah, it's really good. Been busy yesterday, not taking the day off yesterday, just to plug in the automations and systems and everything. So it's really, really good. You don't want to miss this out. It's done at a really reduced price, so you really should take advantage of it. Yeah.
It's a ridiculous price. It's basically $499 for the full Monty, almost the full Monty, apart from individual coaching with me, which is another option for VIP. But for that, I guarantee within a very short amount of time, not only will make your money back, but you'll continue to make your money back again and again and again and again every time you speak. So it's literally like planting a money tree in your back garden, and every time you speak, people want to give you money for doing it, or they hire your services, or they connect you with other people. And I'm going to show everybody who comes in that group how to do it. It's exclusively for those in our WhatsApp group, and it's first come, first served for those spaces. So if that fascinates you, then I think it should do. For anybody who wants to grow their brand and speak, it's a no-brainer. Talking about that, today we've gone on for an hour plus, and it's just been the 3 of us speaking on stage. Nobody else joined us. And I won't take it.
I know.
It's
Can I just quickly ask a question before you start signing off? You have a photo on the title of this show of for LinkedIn, which shows, I think, you going off the side of a ramp. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I will do. It's probably one of the biggest, and funnily enough, I didn't mention it, one of the biggest risks I've ever had. If anybody wants to understand what we're talking about, and thanks for bringing it up, Debs, have a look at the post today. So let me talk you through it. When I worked at the BBC as a news reporter, I was given a side contract, if I wanted it, while waiting for freelance gigs to fulfill themselves, to organise an event. And I was actually thrown under the bus by the local business councils who couldn't be bothered to do it themselves, didn't think it could be done, and I thought, okay, I'll do it. Just pay me the money, I'll do it. So I put together this thing called Kickstart 93, and that's 93, which is what, 30 plus years ago. So we put together a business fair on a big field in the middle of Middlesbrough with lots of people showing their workshops and skill sets, and there's about 30 different stalls. But we had to have a draw that brought people in with a very limited budget. So what I suggested is, why don't we put on bungee? Put on a big bungee crane and invite people to come along and jump off it. That way people from a distance can see what's going along. They'll go along and they'll get interested in taking part, or at least wandering around the stalls. But I didn't have a budget for a celebrity. And I was kind of like a pseudo-celebrity. I was well known for being on the radio, but I wasn't off the TV. So what I did was I put the marketing around, what about if me, who's scared doodah-less of heights, did the very first jump? So that was the deal. Come and see Dave give birth and be scared shitless, jumping off a crane. So I went along and I went up in the crane and I had the t-shirt and I turned to the camera and I had a camera on my back, which you can see looks like a parachute. It's not a parachute, it's a camera, and I've never found the footage. It's probably just me screaming, ah, a silent scream like this. And I turned around to the camera, I showed him the t-shirt, had a big smile, and then somebody showed me jumping all the way down. And I turned and jumped and I did it. And I must have only been in, it must have been maybe 5 seconds or so that you're falling and bouncing a couple of times, and then they lowered me to the ground. I can remember every single second of that. I hated it, and I would never ever voluntarily do it again, but don't dare me, otherwise I would. And
Okay, Dave, I dare you to do skydiving with me. Come on.
well,
Come
the
on.
problem is you would do it so you could get the insurance money.
Exactly.
And we'd
No.
put probably a camera into my suit. So let's have a discussion about that separately. But the reason I did it is that, and there's something interesting that I'm going to share with the WhatsApp group. I think I've got it in the WhatsApp group. Have you seen a video, Debbie, of me doing that jump? I've done a video
No.
of the jump. Okay.
No, I haven't.
So I created a video using AI of getting those 5 pictures together and getting the animation from AI to have me turning around and jumping. And AI did it, because all I had before was little squares on a brochure. And I've animated it to show what it's like when I jumped. So it's interesting to see. I'll send it to you anyway by WhatsApp, and I might drop it into the group at some point. So does that answer your thing about...
So it's a bungee cable. It's not a bicycle that you're sitting on.
It's not a bicycle, because anyone jumps that high on a bicycle, they deserve to die. I remember one thing as a throwaway line on this. I remember once watching Saturday evening TV where there was a guy who was the world's best BMX racer who was going for the biggest jump of all time. So he had to jump over something like 6 double-decker buses on his bike. So they had 6 double-decker buses, they had a ramp on one side of the buses, and a ramp for him to land on the other side. And so they interviewed him, and it was live on TV, everyone's watching it. So he goes, and he takes his runway, and he goes cycling, his little legs, and he's a grown-up, he's like 40 years old, 30 years old, he's not a kid. And he's just cycling, then he jumps up, goes over the buses, lands on the other side, and comes down the other side. And the person who wants to interview him runs straight up to him with a microphone and a camera, and he gets off the bike and he holds his bits because it really hurt to land like that on the other side, and nobody had told him that was what was going to happen. I don't know how he didn't know, but we saw it on TV. So yes, I would not be jumping on a bike for any length of time if I wanted to have my bits working. Too much information, but why not?
Thank you, thank you. So if you can bungee jump, why won't you jump out of a plane?
I didn't say that I wouldn't. I just said I wouldn't talk about it right now.
Oh, okay. All right.
So there we go.
See, because I can jump out of I did jump out of a plane, but I can't bungee jump.
You can.
Yeah.
I can't. There's something about it that just, I've done the gorge swings, I've done all of those zip line things, but the idea of bungee jumping on a cable, I'd rather jump out of a plane, which I have done.
There you go. Well, I will have that conversation with my wife, I'm sure. I can't find an incentive to do it, apart from maybe she wants to divorce me, and that's not a bad reason, but it's not enough reason to jump. So there. On that bombshell... Oh my goodness, it's gone quiet out there. Everyone's going, did he say that? Yeah, that's my risk. On that bombshell, everybody, thank you so much for being part of our community. Most people stayed, even though you didn't say anything, which is still fine. But we'd love to have you joining in with our conversation next week. Please let us know what the conversation should be. If it's one that you want to be interactive with, then feel free to put it into the comment section. Meanwhile, if you enjoyed what we talked about, please, please, please write that in the comment section as well, because we try and grow our community, and it matters more than most people would ever believe that you share that it was a good session. It makes us feel encouraged to come back and talk amongst ourselves like this. Any last insights from you, Aziza, on risk and today's subject before we finish today?
On risk, no, I've got none. But I think there's a comment there from Funmilayo. She said, my comfort zone has been keeping to myself at work without networking or playing office politics to get recognition, promotion, sponsorship, and many favors. Willing to take risks now to get promotion, recognition, sponsors, mentors by building personal brand and visibility to establish myself as a thought leader and expert in the maritime industry.
Who said that?
Funmilayo.
Excellent. Well, Funmilayo,
Yeah.
if you want to talk about how to do that, then that's what I show people how to do, and we'll have that conversation. And that's true.
I just remember what my biggest risk is to agree to do automation for a client in German. I don't know whether that's going to be a big success or a big failure, but hey, just go with the flow and see what happens after that. Hey,
I think that's brilliant. I think the fact that you agreed to it, committed to it, good for you. Well done.
Yeah.
Oh, she was cool. She's amazing. I don't know if I could do that, but she's brilliant at doing stuff. And there's very few things that if she puts her mind to, she can't do. And I'm just astonished at how brilliant she is. I don't just say it because it's my wife. She really does shock me by how brilliant she is at certain things anyway. I don't think I've seen anything that she can't do. Debbie, your last thoughts on today's session?
Just thank you to all those that stayed and listened in and listened to the three of us sharing our views on risks. And for those that are scared to take risks, just do minor risks, if nothing else. But risks do help you evolve, and they have to be done because sometimes we have changes forced upon us. Rather make the choice than be forced.
That's very true. I love that. And so that's it. Let's put today to bed. Thank you very much for everyone for coming out to play. It seems like it did video properly, in which case I'm going to edit it just for making sure the sound's okay. And then I'll plop it onto YouTube and share the link in the comments section of this particular post and within our group on LinkedIn, so you can catch up there. Meanwhile, look after yourself. It is a Sunday, so you've got the rest of the day to play. If you haven't forced yourself to go out to work, you can worry about it on Monday. That's what a weekend's meant to be. You take a break on the weekend. And we'll see you bright and breezy. If you're interested in learning to get paid to speak, then make sure that you contact me directly or join our WhatsApp group, because there's only 5 spaces and they'll be gone soon. Meanwhile, on behalf of myself, Aziza, and Debbie, have the most amazing day. Thank you for coming out to play. It really does make it worthwhile, and we'll be here for you every single time. Look after yourself, and goodbye. Thank you.